Welcome, welcome everyone to day 2, workshop number 2 of Kettlebell 101. Today, we're going to be getting a little bit more active than we were in the first workshop. The first workshop, we just really talked through a little bit about me, why I love to use kettlebells, why I think they're so effective for everyone from beginners on up to advanced folks. And today, we're going to talk about core bracing. I'm going to show you what it is, how to do it, why it's super helpful and essential for kettlebells and any strength training at all. And then I'm going to walk you through and teach you how to pick up your kettlebell from the floor in a way that's going to be safe and efficient. We're going to learn how to hold the kettlebell in 3 different positions: down by your leg, up by your shoulder, which is called rack position, and then in an overhead position. And then we're going to put that all together in some kettlebell marches or carries. Also, I want to just give you the rundown for what our next 3 workshops are going to be. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to be going through squats and rows. Those are 2 fundamental kettlebell exercises, 1 lower body, 1 upper body. Then on Thursday, I'm going to teach deadlifts and overhead presses, 2 more foundational exercises, 1 lower body, 1 upper body. And then on Friday, we're going to put all of the things together that we've been learning about kettlebells and kettlebell training for a full body workout. So let's go ahead and get started with our core bracing exercise, or just a how-to on core bracing. So as a trainer, I've worked with hundreds of clients, and one of the things that I say a lot is brace your core, brace your core, brace your core when you're doing that squat, brace your core as you stand up out of that kettlebell swing, brace your core. And finally, someone said to me, what does that mean? And it dawned on me, like, bracing your core isn't just a no duh, everyone knows how to do it. So what bracing your core does for you is that it aligns your pelvis. It makes sure that your back is protected so that you're not putting unnecessary strain on your lower back. You can brace your core while you're standing up. You can brace your core while you're like down in a plank, which is what we'll do today, in addition to other ways of bracing your core. You can brace your core when you're in a bent over row. This is a classic case of like protecting your back when you're in this bent over position. So you can brace your core when you're standing up, doing an overhead press. All of these things are times and places where we want to have a strong core. It is, first of all, your core is what keeps your lower body and your upper body together. So it's helpful to think of your core as like the center of your body. And it's necessary to brace your core when you're standing up, when you're laying down, when you're upside down, all of the things, so that you can stay tight and stay controlled, keep your pelvis neutral, all of the things. When I say your core area, it's basically like your torso from your chest down. Some people include your glutes or your backside in like, quote unquote, your core. I think I'm one of those people. We're not just talking about like your 6-pack muscles. We're talking about the muscles in the front of your torso, your obliques, so your sides, your transverse abdominis, which is like deep in your core. And then yes, your glutes too, because your pelvis and your core are all connected. And when you're bracing your core, you want to make sure that your pelvis is aligned. So just super, super simple. When I say brace your core, it kind of means like tighten everything up. And you know how if you're just hanging out and then you find out that someone is going to karate chop you or karate kick you right in the gut, you wouldn't just be relaxed, right? If you knew someone was going to come at you, ha, you would be like, ugh, and you would tighten things up because you want to brace for that punch or brace for that kick. So when you're bracing your core, it's similar to that, but a little bit different. So we want to tighten everything up. And I one time heard it explained as like, you're not pushing out, you're not sucking in, but you're just tightening everything up, kind of like a soda can when it's full of water or full of soda. it's tight. It's not bulging out. It's not sucking in. Everything's just tight. So that's what I want you to think of when you're bracing your core. And if you're able to, if you're sitting, if you're standing, if you can just try that, just be relaxed, take a breath. And then if you know, all right, on 3, 2, 1, someone's going to karate chop you right in the gut. What does that feel like? What does that feel like to brace your core? So maybe flexing those six-pack muscles, they're in there, even if it feels like they're covered up by other things. Those muscles are in there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to stand up or sit down. Flexing those and just getting nice and tight, nice and tight. You still want to be able to breathe and you want to be upright. So when we're bracing our core, our pelvis isn't tipped forward or back or this way. We're standing up nice and tall, nice straight line from the side, shoulders over hips, hips over heels, bracing our core. So I'm going to walk you through in exercises where we want to brace our core, but I just want to go over what that feels like and what that looks like. And it's going to be individual. It might feel different for me than it feels for you, but essentially neutral pelvis and spine, tighten up those six-pack muscles. So if you're able to follow me, whether that's now or when you're watching this recording or whatever, let's go ahead and come on down to the floor in a plank position, and we're going to brace our core while we're in that prone position. So we've tried it here, bracing that core, making sure our pelvis is neutral, tighten up, and now we're going to transfer that down to the ground. So we can start on all fours. With your hands, I want you to spread those fingers apart, shoulders right over the tops of your hands. Your elbows are going to be straight. We're gripping the floor with our fingers. So kind of white knuckle grip, use the tips of your fingers, keep your palms flat to the floor. Step one foot back into your plank, step the other foot back right next to it. So our legs are nice and tight, one unit, and go ahead and brace your core. So when you're in this position, we're bringing those stomach muscles up and in towards our spine. We're nice and tight. I'm thinking about if someone was going to walk up to me and just kick me right in the gut from below. I'm ready for it. Okay, come on out. When you're nice and tight and bracing your core, it hurts to be in that position for a long period of time. So just know that if that was taxing for you, it was taxing for me too. But we want to practice what that feels like and where to go, because we're going to be doing that in and out of our exercises as we move through our squats and our deadlifts and our overhead presses and our rows. We don't have to be holding our breath. We don't have to be like super, super intense with it, but I want you to know what that feels like, what that means to brace your core, and just as important, what that neutral spine and pelvis feels like as we're going through certain exercises. Okay, so bracing your core. Let's talk about the kettlebell. So before we get started with how to pick it up, how to hold it, how to set it down, the kettlebell is a ball with a handle attached to it. So this is the kettlebell right side up. So this kettlebell has a flat bottom, so it can sit on the ground and not roll over. So this is right side up. The ball of the kettlebell, the handle of the kettlebell, the top of the handle, and then the sides of the handle. And a lot of times we kettlebell people call the sides of the handle the horns. So if you hear me or someone say, pick that kettlebell up and hold it by the horns, that means the sides of the handle, okay? So if this is right side up, this is upside down, which is also referred to as a bottoms up position. So you could go bottoms up and hold it by the horns, or this is more of like a balancing exercise. You could go bottoms up, hold it by the handle. So now this kettlebell is balancing, right? Because it could flip this way or this way. So we're having to hold it nice and tight by the handle and keep it level and upright so that it's not gonna whack us on one side of the arm or the other. Okay, so right side up, handle, sides of the handle, AKA horns, upside down, or bottoms up, and then a bottoms up balanced position. Okay, so just like a dumbbell, just like a barbell, there are 3 positions where you could hold your bell of choice. So since we're working with a kettlebell, I'm going to show you all of the ways to hold this with the kettlebell, but it's very much the same with a dumbbell and a barbell. We can hold the kettlebell in like farmer carry position, which is down here by our side. When we're doing this, right now I have a 13-pound kettlebell, so it's super light, but I'm just demonstrating and I just want to show you with something nice and easy for myself. When you're holding the kettlebell down by your side, we don't really want to rest it on our body. See what just happened to my posture? I just started leaning to one side because this is heavy and it's now comfortable for me to kind of rest and lean. We want to hold it just out about 1 inch or so away from our body when we're holding it down here by our leg. My arm is straight, my shoulders are pulled back, my abs are engaged, braced core, meaning I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm nice and tall, holding that kettlebell out by my leg. Okay, so how do I get it from the ground up to my leg? Well, what I'm going to do is a version of a deadlift, which is called a suitcase deadlift. And it looks like this. My feet are narrow. The kettlebell is outside of my right foot. I'm going to hinge my hips back, keeping my torso nice and straight. So I'm not rounding over, hinging, pushing my hips back, picking up that kettlebell and bringing it into this farmer carry position. So this is a safe way of picking up a kettlebell. And since you are trained by me, I want you to be safe when you're picking up your weight. I am guilty of it too, but you guys can call me out if you see me do it. I don't want you just picking up a kettlebell like this and then starting your exercise, right? Those are the times, maybe with a 13-pound kettlebell, it's not going to be an issue. But when you have a heavier kettlebell and you're just picking it up off the floor or setting it down, those are the times we're not paying attention, we're not bracing our core, we're not lifting properly. You're gonna hurt yourself doing something dumb like that, not actually doing like a kettlebell deadlift or a kettlebell swing. So I want us to be safe as we're picking up and setting down the kettlebell, even something as simple as picking it up just to hold it by our side. The way we would set it down is the exact same way. If I'm doing something with my kettlebell here by my side, say it's a lunge, I finish my set, having a great time, hinge, set it down, there we go. So you'll see my hips going back, my back is straight, picking that kettlebell up, holding it by my side, and then setting it down. So if you guys want to try that, if you're able to, grab some space, grab your kettlebell. Maybe let's do that 3 times on the right, hinge, pick it up, set it down. This, by the way, is an exercise. It's called a suitcase deadlift. So bonus that you're learning suitcase deadlifts. Now we can try 3 on the other side. Our feet are narrow. I'm going to give you a side view on this one. Hinging hips back, abs stay engaged, pick it up, set it down. Pick it up, set it down. And one more time. All right. So that is how to pick it up off the floor safely and hold that kettlebell by your leg. There's 2 other positions that I'm going to go over how to hold the kettlebell, and I'm also going to teach you how to get it into that position. So the next position is going to be a little bit higher on our body. It's called rack position. So we can do, like I just demonstrated, we could do a lunge with the weight down by your side. We could do a lunge with the kettlebell up by your shoulder in rack position. We can also do a lunge with the kettlebell overhead, which is an exercise in overhead press. But All of these position changes are going to make that lunge slightly different. Okay, so when it's down by our side, that's probably the easiest position to do, say, a lunge. When we bring the kettlebell up closer to our heart, it's now putting more energy into that lunge because we're now, the weight is higher up on our body. It's making it more strenuous on our cardiovascular system to push all the blood to the areas that we need it. We're going to be more out of breath. And if you don't believe me, you can try it. And then the last position, in this overhead position, it's more challenging on our shoulder strength, on our shoulder stability, and it's going to get us even more out of breath in that, using the same weight, using the same reps, everything's the same, but it's going to be more and more taxing each position that we go up, up, up. So bringing the kettlebell into rack position, actually, I'm just going to show you rack position, and then I'll show you how to get in and out of it. So rack position is, it's a thing. We're going to hold the kettlebell in a kind of awkward position. This is why kettlebells are more technical than dumbbells, because if you pick up a dumbbell and put it in rack position, it's just here. It's not that exciting. It's not that fancy. You just are probably in a neutral grip and you just put it on your shoulder and whatever. If you've ever been to a CrossFit gym, they don't show you what rack position is. You'll see most people just holding the kettlebell like this, which is no bueno. So if you've CrossFitted before and done stuff with the kettlebell like on your shoulder like this, we're gonna have to get out of that habit and start figuring out rack position, how to get there, how to do it. So I'm gonna come close up and show you. My wrist is straight, my pinky finger is out, and my thumb is in towards my body. So all the way, you can be touching your thumb towards your chest. I'm not quite to the center line of my body. I'm somewhere in between my midline and my shoulder. So we want that kettlebell between the center line of your body and your shoulder, not across your body here and not to the outside of your shoulder. That puts your shoulder in a kind of a bad position. So we're here. Our elbow is pointed down. Our upper arm is actually touching our torso. So everything's nice and tight into your body. You want to feel like if someone came up to you and they tried to pull that kettlebell away from your body, you're like, no, I got it tight to my body. You're holding it in. You're actually like flexing your bicep. This is an engaged position when you're in rack position. You're not just chilling, you know, hanging out. So we're in rack position. It is a position that we can do squats from, lunges. We can go from this position right into a kettlebell swing. So we get here a lot. And if you are able to, if you're practicing it on your right side, let's go ahead and switch hands and feel what it feels like on the left side too. So remember, our wrist is straight. The opposite of that would be having a bent wrist like this. We don't want that. We want it nice and straight. Depending on the size of the kettlebell, I feel like the smaller kettlebells are the least comfortable because they're resting like right on your wrist bone. If you have a heavier kettlebell, it's usually resting more on the back of your forearm, which is a little bit more comfortable for most people. Again, your pinky finger is facing out, your thumb is facing in. You have that kettlebell tight to your body, your elbow is pointed down, and your upper arm is hugging into your side torso. Okay, so we're between the midline and our shoulder, not across, not to the outside. So right here, nice and tight. Okay, so now we feel what it feels like to be in rack position on the right side and rack position on the left side. To get the kettlebell from the ground into rack position is an exercise. It's called a kettlebell clean. So if you hear me or someone say, clean the kettlebell up from the floor, that means this: we're picking it up and we're bringing it into rack position. So because I'm kind of far away and I'm not sure how great the lighting is, I'm going to just put a slightly heavier kettlebell in my hand. So we're going to start with the kettlebell between our feet. Okay, so my feet are about little bit wider than hip distance apart. Like I feel like this would be a squat position for me. And the kettlebell's right in between my feet, almost like in the arches of my feet. I'm gonna hinge my hips back. I'm gonna keep my back nice and flat, just like I did for that suitcase deadlift. I'm gonna grab the kettlebell with my right hand. I'm gonna pull it straight up using my whole body, standing all the way up, and then bringing that kettlebell right into that rack position. So I'm gonna try to go through it a little bit slower, but the whole thing happens pretty quickly. So I'm standing up, spinning that kettlebell around, it comes to the side of my wrist. So it is in slow motion, it is going from here to here. It's turning around my wrist, but it is not flipping over my wrist. Okay, so we're pulling it up and around. So let me show you that again. And if you can practice it, maybe 3 times on the right and then 3 times on the left. And I'll give you like a 45-degree angle, which I feel like is also helpful. So we can hinge those hips back, pick up that weight, pull it into rack position, kettlebell clean. To get rid of it, we're going to spin it off of your wrist, come back to the floor. You can keep your hand on the top of the handle. Stand it up, rack position, pull that elbow in, back down one more time, and then we can switch sides. So we'll do 45-degree angle for you, left side, pull it up, back down, and one more time. A few different things I see happen over and over with kettlebell cleans. People get really aggressive pulling the kettlebell off the floor, and they end up whacking themselves in the wrist, where the kettlebell goes end over end, boom, and it slams down on your wrist. So a couple different things. If you have a lighter kettlebell, just give it as much power as you need, but not more. So we don't want to be giving the effort of cleaning a 50-pound kettlebell up off the floor when you have a 10-pound kettlebell that you're working with. Okay, so as much effort as you need, but probably don't do too much, because then you're going to end up like that every time. Secondly, or if you have a heavier kettlebell and that keeps happening, watch what happens. I'll do a 45-pound kettlebell just for like emphasis. It's probably too heavy. Let me change my mind. I'll go 35. So I'm not saying you need to do a 20-pound jump, because this one was an 18, but if the kettlebell is heavier, it's probably gonna stay upright, because you would have to give it a ton of power to bring a kettlebell, a heavy kettlebell, end over end. So if you're having that like wrist whack and you're able to use a heavier kettlebell, see what that feels like, because you're probably going to eliminate a lot of that burden by just having a heavier kettlebell. So that a heavier kettlebell clean just looks like that. You're probably going to have a harder time bringing it end over end when it's heavy, because it wants to stay right side up. The kettlebell is twisting around your arm, but you're not flipping it, if that makes sense. Another thing, excuse me while I go out of the frame of the camera for a second. Another thing a lot of people will do when they're first getting started with kettlebells is they'll put like a wristband, a wrist guard on their wrist. If it's really uncomfortable to have that kettlebell resting on the back of your wrist, that's something that I allow people to do. I don't think it's a forever thing. I think it's just like, if it's kind of crappy and painful and you don't want to do it because you're in pain, wear some wrist guards. If you have an Apple Watch, or I wear a Fitbit, I just turn it around so that the like face is not on the back of your wrist. And so sometimes that is uncomfortable to have like a watch on or whatever. So just experiment with like turning it around, maybe putting a wrist guard on, or just taking it off. Third and final position I'll talk about is an overhead position. So we want to make sure that our shoulder mobility is decent before we start taking a weight overhead. So pretty simply, if you're standing on your feet, you're gonna reach those arms up by your ears. Okay, so my arms are by my ears, my elbows are straight. A lot of times I see people that can't bring their arms straight up and they can't keep them straight. So we're here. So if you're in this position, then I actually don't want you to put a weight in your hand and start taking it overhead, because that's just going to do more damage to your shoulders than we probably want. So I encourage you to keep going with the farmer carry position, your rack position, maybe do more mobility stretches, which is like a totally different workshop for your shoulder, or just do like the movement without weight. So you can just mimic what I'm doing, but do it without weight, okay? Because I don't want you to cause more stress and pain to your shoulder and end up like doing more damage than what the benefits of the exercise would be. Overhead position, we're just gonna clean the kettlebell up to rack position like we've been doing. So we're starting from here. To get the kettlebell overhead, we don't just like pick it up and do that, right? We're gonna go from the ground to rack position, and then we're gonna keep our feet firmly planted into the floor. So we have the ground underneath us. We can grip with our toes, keep our quads engaged, keep our glutes engaged. Our core is braced, and then we're gonna press that kettlebell up overhead. So this is our overhead position, okay? Abs are engaged, glutes are squeezed, quads are tight, feet are rooted into the floor. This is our overhead position. Now let's try it on the other side. So it's actually a couple different exercises. It's a clean and it's an overhead press to get into this overhead position. You might notice one side feels great, the other side feels kind of junky. That's totally normal. It's normal for us to have a dominant side and a weaker side, a side that's maybe more flexible and mobile than the other. One of the great things about kettlebells is that we can isolate one side and then the other. When you're doing something like barbell training, this big straight barbell right here, we're holding on with both hands or using both legs all the time. And if one side's super strong and the other side's just kind of hanging on for the ride, we're like, all right, it's so great. We're building up our strong side. And then our other side is just kind of like not really doing anything. So we're becoming more and more dominant on our dominant side. And with kettlebells, we can work to decrease the gap between your strong side and your weak side over time, noticing that your weak side is getting better and stronger. Okay, so let's just play with a couple different marches. So choose your weight. Let's pick it up and just hold it in our farmer carry or down by your leg position. And let's go ahead and just do 10 marches holding the kettlebell in your right hand. So when I say march, I mean pick up your outside foot, bring your knee right up to about hip level, keep those abs engaged like someone's gonna come up and karate chop you, hold it for 1,000, and then switch sides. Picking up your inside foot is always a little bit more challenging for your balance and control. So we're gonna go nice and slow. Hopefully I look like I'm in slow motion. We're on 5, and then we'll switch hands after this. 6 after we get to 10. So this is working our obliques. Go ahead and switch hands. We don't have to put it down. We're just gonna switch. Now pick up your outside foot. If you have a heavier kettlebell, like I don't feel this that much because it's light, but when I have say like a 25-pound kettlebell, after about 30 seconds or so, you'll start to feel your opposite side oblique from the weighted hand. So my kettlebell's in my left hand, I'll start feeling my right oblique because it is under pressure, under strain to keep your body upright, to keep yourself balanced so that you're not doing this like this, okay? So this is, I'll call this 9 and then 10. And then let's go into rack position on the right side and let's experiment with some rack position marches, okay? So we're gonna pick up that kettlebell, bring it into rack position. Abs are engaged. Elbow is down, wrist is straight, and let's go ahead and march. We're almost done. We're gonna march in rack position on each side. And then if you can, we're gonna march in overhead position. Whether or not you have a weight in your hand is gonna be up to you. And then that'll be it for today. So I like to do marches when I'm in classes because I know that people have limited space and I have limited space. Let's clean up that kettlebell on the left side. If you're outside or in a gym that has a lot of space, instead of doing marches, you could just simply walk, and you could walk for maybe like 60 seconds or 45 seconds in this position and get similar benefits. I also like the march because it forces you to slow down. Sometimes when I just give people like carries where they're just walking, it's like they're walking the fastest they've ever walked, and you want to walk slow and feel your core bracing and feel that shifting that your body has to do to stay upright and tall so that you're not slumping over. Okay, so let's go back to the right side. We'll clean up the kettlebell. We'll go overhead and then we'll do 10 final marches. Right side and then left. So we're going overhead. The palm of your hand is facing out. Your arm is straight, your arm is by your ear. We'll do our last 10 marches. We'll set that kettlebell down, bring it back to your shoulder, all the way to the ground, and then left side. Clean it up, press overhead, and we'll start to march. Arm is straight, arm is by your ear, trying to be as vertical as possible with our weighted hand. Keeping your abs engaged, nice and pulled in. Couple more. All right, back to our shoulder, rack position, and then back to the floor. Okay, good job. All right, so we went over the structure of the kettlebell, different ways to pick it up, hold it in 3 positions, our farmer carry, rack position, and overhead. We went through marches, core bracing, and that's it for today. So we're all done. As a reminder, Wednesday, we're going to be working on squats and rows. Thursday is overhead presses and deadlifts. And then Friday, we're going to put together a full 30-ish minute workout with all of the things that we've learned throughout the week. So I know the vast majority of you guys are watching this on replay because who's available at 10:15 Monday through Friday. So I totally get that. And I'm just super pumped that some of you guys were able to make it here live. And I know a lot of you guys are watching this recording when you get home from work or you have a lunch break or whatever. So thank you for spending time with me. And if you guys have any questions or if you want to reach out, just email me and yeah, I will get back to you soon. Is breath important? Yes. So on marches, I would just say breathe whenever. So there's not like an exertion point necessarily with your marches. You're just kind of holding steady. Same if you're walking. Most of the time when we're connecting our breath to a movement, we're usually connecting it exhaling when we're doing the most amount of effort. So like exhaling on exertion. So just in the case of like an overhead press, the hardest part of the press is when you're pushing the weight overhead. So that's the exertion point. So you would want to push some air out, maybe when you get to the top of that press. So we're bracing, push air out at the top or when you get to the top. And then if you're coming back down, you can take in some air. So for these marches, just breathe as normally as possible. I know it's kind of a lot with like brace your core and you're like, when do I breathe? Just try to breathe normally. And then when we're doing squats and rows and overhead presses and deadlifts, then I'll talk to you a little bit more about connecting your breath to your movement. But I feel like that's the least important thing. The most important thing is like the positioning of your body, making sure your spine is safe, making sure your feet are in the right place, all of that good stuff. The breath is great, especially when you're lifting heavy. And the most important thing is like, just don't hold your breath. Just make sure you're breathing at some point. But that's not like the main thing. I feel like that's like, get your first, 2 or 3 things down, and then let's worry about the breath, but just like make sure you're breathing so you don't pass out. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions too. If you guys have questions, that means that other people have them too. They just didn't think of it, or they didn't know it, or they weren't live to ask the question. So have a great rest of your day. I will see you very, very soon. Bye, guys.